Hello, it's October 2024. Now this video is going to be in the realm of, we'll call it woo-woo. So once again, if you're not into this type of thing, just skip this video. Now this video does tie into the cycles of civilization, the patterns within, and perhaps even get some insight into why the world is the way it is and everything else. There's a lot of controversy about this. People either dismiss it, make up excuses, or just think it's crazy. And even within the community that sees this particular topic, there's a lot of bickering and arguing back and forth what this is all about. And of course, what I'm talking about is something called the Mandela effect. Now, the Mandela effect is nothing new. They've talked about this throughout, at least what we're told history is, all the way back to ancient times, using different descriptives. And even books written in the 1960s, there's one called Time Slips. So there's been different descriptives throughout history with regards to this particular thing. Now, a real quick example, going back to ancient times, the ancients would talk about how, for example, the gods would be manipulating reality. Now this reality is tangible, it's real, it's physical, it does exist. Just have to make that very clear. But that was an example how, again, in the ancient times, they would talk about the gods. Now, when you look at the different gods, some might call them small g gods, that's not to be confused with the Most High, the creator of all things, for example. But there are, again, as a descriptive, lowercase g gods, and in the ancients they would talk about how they would change things. Now the Mandela effect, a lot of people for years have been focusing on little detail things, everything from corporate logos changing to phrases in movies to all these little things. And these are not the things that I'll be focusing on or that should really matter, because a lot of these things can be explained. I'm not saying all of them, and I'm not dismissing that these little things perhaps haven't had any kind of changes. Now, what really sets the Mandela effect apart from, say, for example, faulty memories and all these things are the residuals. Give you an example. One of the biggest examples would be, for example, the JFK event. What happened? How many people were in the car? Many people remember there have been 4 in the car. There have been some that even say 6. Now what's interesting is when you look at the Zapruder film, it shows 6. But there's residuals showing 4. That's something that you could look into if you want. Just gonna actually expand on this just for a moment. If there was 6, then there is the whole magic bullet theory, trying to explain away a single person making shots from a specific location, and how, for example, one bullet would have traveled through and hit the person in the front passenger seat, and if there was someone sitting between them, than where that theory come from. But anyway, I digress. So the Mandela effect has very big things. I would consider that the JFK event something big, not something subtle. And it even affects, for example, land masses and all sorts of things. A lot of people cannot see these things, these changes, we'll call them. Now, the people who do realize some sort of changes, again, I'm approaching this from a neutral perspective, speaking through the perspective of, in this case, people who see these changes. A lot of people, most people cannot see these changes. Now, over the years, especially maybe even almost a decade ago, people were going online talking about things that they've noticed changing. And there was even one story of a woman who was claiming that her family is not her family. The person that she's married to is not her husband. Those weren't her kids. That's not her house. Now, you can dismiss this as even like a psychotic breakdown or something. Let's just give this some benefit of doubt. A lot of people are talking about things, even little subtle things in their own lives changing. Now, again, these types of things you can say faulty memory, a mental breakdown, whatever. But then there are some other residuals that really stand out. Now, these residuals that really stand out can be linked to this Mandela effect. For example, finding pickaxes in solid granite. There's even claims and photos of watches being found in solid granite. But the one that's really interesting is a boot that was found in solid granite when they were digging some sort of tunnel, and there was still a human foot in it. Now, there's a few other stories about boots with human feet still inside of them. I'm focusing on this one specific one because the tag on the boot has the manufacturer being in business from, I believe, the mid to 1800s, and they went out of business in the early 1900s. Found in solid granite. Now, it's not so much finding the boot and everything else, but what event took place just regarding that no one knows about, no one recalls, there's no record of what event took place. Now, when it comes to finding these pickaxes and watches and all sorts of stuff in stone, people have tried to say, oh, look at 1 billion years ago, there's this ancient technology and whatever. Well, that's kind of going along with the whole theory of the Big Bang and the world traveling through space at millions and billions miles an hour and distances and all this craziness. But just think about that boot with the tag. Something had happened around 100 years ago. And again, all these things tie into the cycles of civilization and the patterns within, the literal 100-year patterns. But anyway, that's a different topic. Some people have noticed, for example, and I'm going to focus on Christianity, Christians for a moment here, how even their holy book, their Bible, and just going to segue for a moment, the word Bible means the book. So it's not exclusive to Christianity. But anyway, I digress again. But they're noticing changes, and people are saying, well, this has changed, that's changed. Okay. Now, Christians are trying to say that, oh, look at it as the devil or Satan or whatever attacking them, and like they're the only religion being affected by this Mandela effect. The reality is all religions are being affected, all their holy books, things are being changed. And I've talked to people in other religions and belief systems that are saying, yeah, things are being changed, but they're not allowed to talk about it. For example, Christians will talk about it because it goes along with the narrative of being persecuted and everything else. Christianity's position overall is victimhood, but anyway. So even religions and belief systems are being affected by these things. People have even told me over the many years how they've noticed some changes in their lives. Nothing major. And the best thing I can say to people, whether this Mandela thing is real or not, whether you want to accept that it's real or not, whatever, regardless of the changes, and the example that I've used is, so one day you walk out your front door and, for example, fish are swimming through the air. That becomes the reality. Rather than freaking out about it and trying to get everyone's attention and everything else, which will make you, or at least appear to look crazy, you just go, oh, okay, make a mental note and continue on like normal, like there's nothing different. That's overcoming, adapting, and moving forward. Being prepared. There's no point of trying to draw attention to these things, because most people cannot see these things, and you're just going to appear crazy in whatever this change is. A lot of people, they remember what they would call the original version of something and seeing, oh, it had changed. What people don't realize is that what they're recalling is only a previous change, and from their perspective, what they remember even, well, that has to be the original. That's the way it was always been. But all they're doing is remembering a previous change. How many changes and how many things and resets there have been, well, who knows? But you have to move through life and survive life, and it's about survival. So again, most people cannot see these changes, or people who do see these changes, they become consumed by these things, and they start to see changes that can be explained away, or changes that haven't happened, but they see it because they become consumed. And one of the biggest messages I've been saying on any topic, whether it be, say for example, something from the earthly perspective, or from a woo or even a spiritual perspective, those are two different things. You simply have to overcome, adapt, and move forward and survive life, this game of life. Again, this reality that we're living is real, it's tangible, it's not, as some would call it, some computer-generated thing that we're living in. Everything is real and tangible. And there's been movies even talking about real human beings being controlled in these movies, for example, by other human beings for games. Now, in a previous video that I made, I talk about creating a huge game board, a real, tangible game board, and the game pieces being made in a specific way to be controlled by others, say beyond human. Start piecing everything together and you start to understand the world. For example, I did a video, it was hard to do, about a species beyond human who can project, control, manipulate even at times people physically. And when you start putting all the pieces together, you start to see a bigger picture. And now we're starting to get into the realm of actual, real, hidden knowledge that, as a descriptive what some might call the elites, the very top people, knowing what's really going on in this world. And hopefully this gives you maybe a little deeper understanding. Now again, for people who follow scientism, atheists, they're going to be very dismissive about all this, think this is all crazy talk. That's fine. That's the way that they're programmed. And you can't change anyone on any side of the fence. And again, even with earthly perspective things, there's flavors of Kool-Aid for everyone. There's things for people who follow mainstream. There's also things for people who follow alternative, like truthers and freedom types and everything else. There's a sliver in the middle looking around going, whoa. Just things to think about. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share. Things that I have been discussing for today, say for the wow. 24, and this woo-woo.
Listen to this and write it down if you can't remember it. You're never going to outgrow warfare. You simply must learn to fight. I hear people saying to me, oh, when is it going to get easier? When you die.